Gym Teachers Soviet Gym Teachers Parade in Moscow, 1956. The Russian word used in the title is now usually translated as gym teachers, but at the moment of the parades meant bodybuilders. Giant tree, over 100 people stand with a log giant sequoia tree in California, 1917. The rough age of a tree this size is 2,500 years old. To put that in perspective, it's older than Christianity. Marine, Middle East, 1942. A Marine repairing a flag on board the cruiser HMS Alcantara. Vladimir Putin, 1971. He was born in 1952, so he would have been 18 or 19 in this picture. Swagman, the term originated in Australia in the 19th century and was later used in New Zealand. Swags are still very common today in Australia and used for camping or traveling. The Microsoft staff, 1978. They retook this exact picture 30 years later in 2008. Adobe Homes Man, an amazing detail of Adobe homes in Massa Village, 1925 to 1926. German soldier. A battle-weary German soldier takes pause in the combat and sits with a look of resignation on his face during the Battle of Berlin as the Reichstag burns behind him. April 1945. Marilyn Lovell, wife of Apollo 13 Commander Jim Lovell, reading a newspaper with the rescue mission headlining the front page. 1970. Boy Samson. A 14-year-old calling himself Boy Samson supports a 200-pound motorcycle and its rider. 1932. Tree piles. Men stand on piles of cut trees in rural New York. 1907. The log drivers are standing on logs that are in water, hence the poles. If you were to fall off and through the logs, you would be in trouble. Although the kind of pile they are on would put them at greater danger of being crushed as drowning because the jumbled logs create more air pockets. Nurse. A Red Cross nurse takes down the last words of a British soldier. Photograph by Paul Thompson. Somewhere on the Western Front. CA 1917. Fidel Castro laying a wreath at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., 1959. SS Morro Castle burnt and shipwrecked off the coast of New Jersey, 1934. The SS Morro Castle, named after a fortress that guards Havana Bay, was a luxury cruise ship of the 1930s that was built for the Ward Line for runs between New York City and Havana. On the morning of September 8, 1934, en route from Havana to New York, the ship caught fire and burned, killing 137 passengers and crew members. The Paris Massacre of 1961, Here We Drown Algerians, reads graffiti on the Saint Michel Bridge a few days after national police violently cracked down on Algerian independence protesters. Dozens of bodies were pulled out of the River Seine, with 40 dead acknowledged by the government. The Soiling of Old Glory, a photo that ran across newspapers in 1976 and won the Pulitzer Prize, showing a white teenager aiming the American flag like a weapon against a civil rights attorney during massive protests in Boston against court-ordered desegregation of the school system. Stonehenge, first aerial photograph of Stonehenge, 1906. Disneyland's Rocket to the Moon, 1967. Aaron Stern, Auschwitz prisoner number 80620, on guard at Jaffa's Mantium Quarter, circa 1948. J.P. Morgan getting pissed at a photographer. May 11, 1910. 1920 speed limit sign, heading over the ridge route between Los Angeles and Bakersfield during that era was another version of this sign. From Castaic to Gorman, the speed limit was 15 miles per hour. Motorists were given a timestamp ticket on one end and checked at the other. If you made it in less than the allotted time, you were given a ticket. Times have certainly changed. German soldiers playing cards in a trench, World War I. The Germans built their trenches up really well, with wooden floors and buttressed walls to keep them from collapsing. Queen Liliuokalani, the last monarch of Hawaii, seated on her former throne in the Iolani Palace, circa 1900. Her government was deposed by a U.S. military-backed coup in 1893 after she introduced a new constitution to restore voting rights to Asians, Native Hawaiians, and the poor. Ballet class in a destroyed Russian town in World War II, 1940s. Leonard Nimoy as Spock in the studio parking lot with his 1964 Buick Riviera.